Welcome to the Hobby Jogger Podcast, where elite athletes and ham and eggers lace up their stories. We explore the common ground that running creates, from the world-class runner to the hobbyist hitting the pavement, trail, or treadmill. Expect a blend of inspiration, laughter, and the shared joy that makes every step count. Join us on this journey where every run is a story worth sharing. Welcome to this episode of the Hobby Jogger. I am your host, Ethan Koza, and I am once again joined by my co-host with the most, Mr. Rob Myers. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk to the FKK.
To the what?
FKK, fastest known Koza.
Easy on that one there. Yes. So for this week's episode, we have a guest currently living in Flagstaff, Arizona, previously hails from also my home state, also sharing the same last name as me. We have Mr. Ethan Koza joining us today, whatever. Ethan, how are you, bud?
Oh, I'm doing great, guys. How are y'all doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, dude, thanks for joining us. We certainly appreciate that. Rob, thanks for making me feel bad already. We're 54 seconds in and
just setting the mood. Yeah, just setting the mood. Teeing them up.
So, Ethan, we talked a little bit before, but you're originally from Philadelphia, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. From the great city, some would say, of the Liberty Bell.
It is the city of the Liberty Bell. I don't think it is much of brotherly love there, as the name says. Not a lot of, yeah, especially in the sports world.
Yeah.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Council Rock High School North, which is in Newtown, Pennsylvania. So Newtown is, I want to say, like 40 minutes north of Philly. So definitely like in the suburbs. I was a suburbs kid. High school was pretty awesome. My cross country team won the team title for states my junior year, and then we tied for states and lost my senior year. So there's a bit of a running connection out there. And then I decided to continue running in college. So I ended up my first year committing to Lehigh University, which is like a small private school in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I ended up transferring after my freshman year to Temple, which is in Philadelphia. So I basically, up until just recently, have spent my whole life and budding running career in southeastern Pennsylvania.
Now, you went to Council Rock High School, you said. I believe that school is mostly known for its wrestling, correct?
Yeah, big wrestling feeder school to like Penn State and Lehigh. I couldn't tell you much like specifics about the history, but definitely like I had some friends who were like, I don't know if All-American is the right term in high school, but like top tier wrestlers in AAA, like from skinny dudes who probably weighed 120 up to like big burly dudes who are probably like 180, 190 in high school.
Yeah. In Pennsylvania, for those that don't know, is a hotbed of wrestling, folk style wrestling. I don't know as much about freestyle, but growing up in southwestern Pennsylvania, I do recognize the school Council Rock as having some studs in the wrestling world.
Well, Casey, you used to wrestle, right?
Correct. I did. I was
no kidding.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit too small to wrestle by the time I got to high school. I believe we talked about that before. But yeah, grew up wrestling. It's a sport I admire a lot, and I know I still check like PA wrestling stuff, and I always see Council Rocks up there. So that's what kind of rang that bell for me. And going to Lehigh College, D3, correct?
I think they're D1 actually. They were D1 for running, and I believe they were D1 for wrestling then. I don't know if you can like swap for different sports or not.
Yeah. Well, it's a small school, but it's a D1 wrestling school, yes. But it's a D3 size, I guess is what I was.
Yeah, it was like 5,000 kids, but a lot of like top tier wrestlers. Definitely more so than top tier runners,
Yeah. So you ran in college.
Yeah.
for Lehigh and then
for
the
Temple. Yeah.
Temple, who's out in Philadelphia. How did your college career?
Not very good. I wasn't a very whatever middle of the pack guy for cross country. My track career was not even worth mentioning. It just took me longer to mature and kind of figure out college racing, and I ended up quitting the team essentially at Temple my junior year, so I didn't even finish out a full 4-year D1 career. I want to say it was 2021. COVID, things started falling apart personally and athletically. And I was just like, man, I got to let running go, as well as some coaching stuff. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or whatever, but there's just a period of time where I transferred because I thought like just program wasn't right for me. And then I kind of realized like maybe I wasn't right for D1 running. So I kind of started like falling out of love with the sport, and then like COVID hit, and my foundation of everything got shook, and I was trying to do a lot of stuff, and I kind of just had to like let go of running, and I was like ready to let go of it. I wasn't really enjoying training, like I wasn't competing well, this or that. Effectively fell off the face of the earth as far as mid-tier D1 programs are concerned. But then as soon as I quit the team, I was like, I need to run out all this pain and uncertainty. And that's how I discovered ultra running. I lived in North Philadelphia, which is very far from any full green trails. So I would run 5 or 6 miles to Belmont Park in South Central Philly. And then I'd run around the park for a few miles to get some quote unquote fresh air and not have to look at sidewalk full of needles and trash. And then I would run home. So it just ended up being a ton of easy mileage that I didn't even realize I was getting. You know what I mean?
Math real quick. 21 years old, right? So you're out of school, 21 years old, done with your college career. You decide, this is kind of fascinating because you took the exact opposite on your ultra signups, the exact opposite of most people. You just said, hey, you know what? I feel like running 100 miles. I'm just going to go run 100 miles at the Pine Creek Challenge. How do you make that jump from, like I said, most people go up the ladder. Yeah, let's run a 10 and a 15. You just went straight into the 100. You just were like, hey, let's do it. Let's go for it all.
It was mostly just ignorance, really. Part of it was I'd always been told by friends and family, oh, the longer the distance, the better you are, kind of thing. I don't have any speed. I'm not even a speed endurance guy. So in college at regionals, the 10K on the cross country course felt too fast for me. A lot my roommates and everything, we were big into running culture. So I was seeing people, demolish 10-mile road races because broad streets in Philly. And I was seeing people out of college demolish the half marathon and the marathon, Clayton Young, for example, just guys stepping out of college, going to the marathon. And I was like, well, I can't compete with them at all. I don't really want to have to do workouts. So I kind of just wanted to find something that was I can just run easy and find my enjoyment for running again. And 100 just seemed like a really cool round number, like a Benjamin of miles. And there just happened to be one kind of close. So I was like, okay, we'll do 100 miles, see how that is. So it was kind of just silly thinking that I could jump in and do it. But part of it was the way I was brought up, everything people said to me about my running was the longer the run is, the better. And I kind of just accepted it and started to believe them.
So was that your first 100 miles period? Did you ever run 100 miles just in training?
Yeah, that was my first. I ran maybe in training, I maybe ran a marathon, but that was my first race longer than 10K. It was my first time having to eat on a run. It was my first time running when the sun was down and then running through the day. So it was a lot of firsts, which is great because ignorance was definitely bliss in that case.
You went from a 10K to 100 miles. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that is amazing.
The exact opposite of what just about every other person in running has done. So I respect that. I like it. And it's the just go for it attitude, which is, to be commended for. Like you said, sometimes ignorance is bliss. And I mean, yeah, that's awesome. Like dude, I'm happy for you.
I appreciate it. I'm definitely glad it ended up being that way, because now like shorter races, and I like to run like faster courses. So I'm not like a huge mountain athlete who's out there for like all day. So like a 50 miler to me is 7 or 8 hours. It seems a lot more reasonable now, instead of starting from like a 50K and then working my way up to, 50 miles kind of thing. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of things seem a lot more reasonable after you just, go out and run 100 miles. So
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my arms around that. Like, what was it like? Okay, this is the first time I've ever run 50 miles. This is the first time I've ever run 60 miles. I mean, that had to be a memorable run for sure. There's a lot of firsts there.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say the thing that was probably most memorable was, I mean, there were a lot of memorable things, like the people volunteering, like the atmosphere of the race was exceptional. The thing I definitely remember the most is like, I tried out a new pair of shoes for the 100 miler, which was a mistake. And then at mile 80, I ended up sitting down to change my shoes back to something I was more familiar with. And I will never forget, for as long as I live, the pain in my legs from like trying to stand back up, trying to rally at mile 80 to get some kind of forward momentum. So the most memorable thing was like how painful that part of it was. And, I don't, at least for these faster kinds of races that I like to do, like I will never let myself sit down again, because I'm lucky that wasn't game over for me. But there was, a lot of memories in there. But I'll be honest, a lot of the miles kind of just have kind of melted together. Like I couldn't tell you exactly how I was feeling at mile 35, or I couldn't tell you exactly what was going on in my mind at mile 62. I just kind of remember like the progression of feeling and believing and not believing and all that good stuff.
that's awesome. And you must have enjoyed it because you're still doing it. So it didn't like ruin you from the sport, which I could see where that would happen to a lot of people. Like as I've built up the distance, because I'm newer to the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I did 100K last summer. I was like, that wasn't much fun. Like I don't think we're doing that. That was
Yeah.
bad. And it's like, I'll go run 100 miles. That seems doable. Seems feasible. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's easier to, I'll be honest, it's been easier to enjoy it because I've won some of those races, and they're not the most competitive race. They're kind of your normal like run of the mill, like, oh, there might be one or two really strong people, but winning the race is definitely like a very enjoyable element that kind of keeps me coming back, and like we turn up the challenge a little more, see what's going on. Because I do remember like after Pine Creek, which is 2021, like cross the finish line, collapse, all that normal stuff. And I like look up to my parents and I'm like, never again. I was like, I swear to God, I'm never doing this again. And then obviously that I did not keep that promise.
I'm glad you didn't. You're someone I'm definitely going to be rooting for here. So Rob, I'm sure as well.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of 100 miles, Casey, don't you have something going on this weekend?
Yeah. Running the Canal
Yeah.
Corridor. Yeah. Running the Canal Corridor 100, nice and flat. Unfortunately for me, it looks like it's going to rain again, which is not good. I don't like the rain, especially the cold rain. So yeah, going to knock off my first 100 miler. I build up slowly, unlike Ethan, to get here.
I kind of like Ethan's technique. I mean, I think ignorance is bliss. When you build up slowly, you kind of know what's coming, right?
Hey folks, if you're loving the stories, tips, and laughs we're dishing out, make sure you don't miss an episode. Hit that subscribe button so you're the first to know when a new episode drops. And hey, if you've got a second, why not leave us a review? Your feedback helps us improve and keeps this running community growing. Lace up, hit subscribe, and let's get back into the show. Yeah. I mean, I thought I did a good thing by just running a 50K before I ran anything else. My man here just straight off into the deep end. Dead sailor, no hands. I like
Yeah, but you sent it at grindstone. That's a crazy, like the vert in that race would scare me away. And you were just like, I'm just going to attack that. So it's honestly not that different of a strategy. You're like, I'm just going to make it hurt a lot more quickly than like a more reasonable 50K, you know? So
Well, the reason I like the Laurel Highlands and Grindstone is because I get to walk a lot and say I'm power hiking. Like I am
Mhm.
Scott Jurek meme in the sense that, yeah, right, Rob, I'm out there power hiking. I'm not walking up that hill. I am power hiking.
Yeah, we'll say power hiking for now. Tomato, tomato.
So Ethan, it looks like you run over some races out east, Beast of the Burden, the Dirty German Endurance Fest. That looks like fun. That sounds like something that would be a good time.
That was a cool race. The trophy for that is like a cuckoo clock that responds to the weather, because like there's basically these strings and pieces of wood on the inside that are very susceptible to pressure changes. So like if it's raining or like if it's sunny or whatever, the cuckoo clock should be doing different things. It's at my parents' house out in Newtown, so I'm not sure if it's set up or anything, but that was a really cool, that was like a mud fest of a run. So that one was a lot of fun for sure.
Well, that definitely sounds like an awesome prize. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unique for sure.
yeah.
I guess if they have kind of a politically incorrect race title, you know, they got to make people okay with it somehow. It's like, here, we'll bribe you with this cuckoo clock. Just don't complain about the race name or whatever.
That's awesome. That's actually one of the cooler prizes I've heard. I'm still upset. There was a local race. I took third. Top three were supposed to get a jar of local maple syrup to the trails that it was on.
Oh,
So I finished third, and I was like, "Hey, dude, where's my maple syrup?" He's like, "Well, you were third in your age group and overall. The two in the age group got two. You don't get any." And I was like, "Wait, I thought it was top three." Yeah, I was like, "Wait, I thought it was top three." I was like, "Well, then I won my age group, and I should get it for the age group." He's like, "No, you finished third in the age group, and we only give two to age groups." And I was like, "I'm confused." So yeah,
you've been robbed.
yeah, I got robbed of a hometown maple syrup. Not happy about it still to this day, but
Disappointing.
that was the Tuscazor, Rob. The Tuscazor. I didn't go back this year, obviously.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I'm sure you filled out the survey though, right?
No, I didn't fill out the survey. I only filled out one survey ever. Yeah, bad food truck. Bad food truck.
Well, like a post-race survey.
Yeah, like because we just had Dan and Jim of Laurel Highlands on Laurel Highlands, which is in
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
I saw that one.
You know, we are talking about the post race surveys, and because I said I never complain, and I don't think I was complaining, Rob. I simply just said that maybe having a corn dog food truck at the finish line wasn't like the best.
Ugh.
I think I said it.
Yeah,
sucked
I don't
ass.
know if corn dogs are the move ever, personally.
Yeah, like kind of
Time and a
weird.
place.
Yeah, if I'm if I'm at the county fair, it's perfect. But maybe not after a 50K and it's 85 degrees. I don't really want a corn dog.
Yeah.
No, not so much.
Maybe beer truck would have been good. So anyway, Ethan, you're killing these East Coast races, and you just decide, you know what? I need bigger and better. I'm moving. I'm heading out west. Is that pretty much what happened?
Kind of. I'd been to Flagstaff before to do this thing called the Conservation Corps, which is like an AmeriCorps program. And it basically just like, that was my first time really away from the East Coast. It was like 2022, came out to Flagstaff to like learn how to use a chainsaw and work in the national forest. It was super cool. And then I ended up doing a season of Wildland Fire. So that Beast of Burden race was basically, I was on a Type 6 engine out in Coeur d'Alene, and I flew the East Coast for that race, and it was hot and humid, and I was not prepared for it, and it was miserable. But I kind of, after that race, like I still had to go back to fire season. It's like hot, dirty, smoky work. And I started to kind of consider, like, I don't really know if, this is how I want to treat my body. I ended up moving back out to North Carolina for fall of 2023 to do some prescribed burning. And I found that I was able to start running again and not be like destroying my body. I was actually going to run a race in North Carolina in April of 2024, around the same time I did Whiskey Basin. But then some stuff happened at the end of that job. There was like some unsafe firing operations that happened. And I was kind of like, all right, like I've been doing this like stuff that's hard on my body, like the conservation work. And I've also been doing this stuff that's hard on my body, which is like running ultras. And so I kind of decided like, well, I enjoy both of these things, but like while I'm young, I kind of want to see what I'm capable of in this like ultra running community, because I've had some success. So I basically like hired a coach. His name's Will Baldwin. We talked about like some race strategy stuff. And I was like, I'm going back out to Flagstaff because that's like a great place to train. Like obviously Jim has trained in Flagstaff a bunch, but there's tons of people. And I was like, I'm going out to Flagstaff. I'm going to run races. So we found this race in Prescott, which is basically like an hour south of Flagstaff. April, it's like perfect weather. So we signed up. And then kind of since then, it's been like finding races, but planning for some bigger stuff. And like, I'm starting to take training seriously and all this good stuff. So there's a little bit of like, yeah, I kind of just moved out, but it was also like sport. Like I was kind of missing the sport, and I was at this crossroads where I was like, I don't know, I'm going to do something that's hard for my body one way or another, but maybe it was like an ego thing. Like there's a little more glory in running these races and getting a little recognition for it than there is in like being an anonymous person in a yellow shirt and green pants who walks the forest and breathes in smoke all day.
So am I understanding this right? You're like a forest firefighter then?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, well, so I don't do that. As of April, I stopped doing that. But yeah, basically in 2022, I was on a fuels reduction crew in Flagstaff. That was a lot of like thinning the forest so that it's like better protected against fire. And then after that, I went to Coeur d'Alene and I did the wildland thing. So I was on an engine, and I wasn't familiar with what wildland fire was because I grew up in, outside of Philly. Like we don't have forest fires. It is kind of common in the Southeast and a little bit in the Midwest, but out West, really, like, I'm sure people hear about like those huge fires in California or Oregon or whatever. There's people that like, it's their job to attempt to control that wildfire or mitigate the consequences of it. So they are working like in the forest near this fire, trying to quell it, trying to like reduce fuels. So I was doing that out West, and then I did it out East in the winter, and I loved it. I enjoyed the heck out of it. And I'm probably still going to go back to it at some point, but it's very like physically demanding work. And I kind of miss like feeling energized and feeling healthy, which that job doesn't always lead you to feel that day when you're on your feet and bending over with your heavy pack and breathing in smoke and being in the heat. So I let that go in April. I came out to Flagstaff just like working on a farm, kind of just like a little bit more chill lifestyle, and decided to like take running more seriously for like a year or 2 years and see what I could get out of it.
Back to fighting fires. I mean, what is that process like? Like how do they pick a spot to catch on fire? I mean, is it just, we don't want it to go towards the city, so burn this field over here, trying to redirect the fire somewhere else?
It depends a lot for wildfire, because if you're a federal resource, which means you're like the U.S. Forest Service or NPS, you're working like on public lands. So yes, there is some element of public protection. You don't want things to burn towards people's houses, but the forest and the landscape itself is a resource. There's like this whole history of fire in this country was mismanaged for a long time. So now fires burn hotter, heavier, quicker, more violently. So you're basically trying to balance like the fact that fire is a natural part of the ecosystem and stuff is supposed to burn. The fact that the forests are way overcrowded with more trees and there's people living in there. And obviously, the forest, quote unquote, has many uses, but if it's national forest land, that falls under the Department of Agriculture. So there's things like grazing rights and, sometimes fields burn to set up like farming and stuff. So there's a lot of reasons to stop a fire. There's a lot of ways to stop it as well, but sometimes it's too hot and too dangerous and you just have to let stuff burn.
That is pretty interesting. Did not think I was going to learn this much about firefighting. I did. Now that I did just look at your Instagram, I do see a picture of you fighting a fire. So that
yeah, my one and only Instagram post. I was kind of against Instagram, and then my coach was like, "Hey, you should get an Instagram in case like you want to take this running thing more seriously. Like you can hopefully like attract some kind of engagement or sponsorship at some point." And he's right, but I was like, I want to be a little goofy about it. So I didn't, it hasn't been all running stuff on there, but certainly it is a large part of my personality. So that will reflect in my social media as well.
Yeah, I was wondering who took Cowboy Koza before I could get it. Now I found out it was you. I've never met someone that has done that, went out and fought forest fires. And do they just will you have to go out for like days at a time to do this? Because you go to some pretty remote areas, correct?
Yeah. So a typical role, like in the height of the season, when resources are kind of being stretched thin, can be like 12 days. It can be 14. In very rare instances, people will get pushed to 21 days, but that's more of like I was on an engine, which is kind of like the less intense side of fire. There's guys and gals out there doing like incredibly hard work on hand crews, where a lot of their work is like with hand tools and chainsaws. So they're like, they don't have an engine with water. They're out there biking out way in the middle of nowhere. And then there's even higher levels called hot shot crews, which it's this whole kind of like the Forest Service approach to like pressing fires is kind of paramilitary. So there's like levels and layers to response type, and you get more dialed, more extreme people like Marines, and that would be like hot shots. Or you have like specific, like Delta Team 6 or whatever, like that would be like smoke jumpers. So there's this whole world of intensity that I didn't even touch when I did it. I had comparatively mostly an easy job. I got to be at the engine every day, so I could store more stuff, and there was water and all that good stuff. But yeah, we would spike out maybe 10 or 14 days if we were on like a big fire. And then there's like all these rules and regulations about like how much you work and then drive, and you have to take a certain amount of days off. But obviously the work is like intense and they need a lot of people. So you kind of get cycled back through fairly quickly.
Now, here's a question for you, because I've always thought this. You mentioned that the fires are burning hotter and quicker. Is it due to mismanagement of fires where we just put them out right away?
Historically, that has been part of it. Basically, in the Forest Service, which is like the largest land management agency that deals with forest fires, there used to be this policy called the 10 a.m. policy. So any fire that got reported, you'd see smoke, you'd have somebody in a watchtower calling out this remote smoke after lightning or a campfire getting left or whatever. There was this 10 a.m. policy where basically after a fire got reported, the fire had to be out by 10 a.m. the next day. What that basically did was interrupt the cycle of fire, because every year you would have fires, burning around and smoldering around, eating up hundreds of thousands of acres, but doing it in a slow and controlled way. And when you interrupt that cycle, fuel starts to build up in the forest because it's not burning as often. So at some point it will burn, whether it's from lightning or campfire or a spark from somebody driving or whatever. And now there's way more fuel available in the forest, and it is a lot harder to stop. So part of it is like mismanagement, but I want to preface that by saying nobody knew better at the time. And this policy kind of went into place in like the 1910s, and people were rightfully scared of fire. This was kind of the end of westward expansion in the US, and we felt like we had conquered the continent or the country, and we were kind of scared of the wilderness, and fire was part of the wilderness. So in our way to control it, we were trying to put everything out, and we didn't realize for a long time until we started having really smart people like investigate the historic significance of fire and see what native communities were doing with fire. Did we really understand, oh, we've got a ticking time bomb out here. Now, we did all that work to stop fire, and now there's so much more work to get it back to a more natural cycle.
So, Casey, I'm starting to pick up on a reoccurring theme here. I think Ethan's a bit of a risk taker. What do you think?
Yeah. If you're walking into fires in the middle of the woods, yeah, you tend to take risks, I think. I mean,
You're also a cage fighter and, jump out of airplanes. What are your other hobbies?
Yeah. Some people do jump out of airplanes. That is a thing people do on fire. They're crazier than me. Let's see, other hobbies. I like to read. I write a little bit just to impress my girlfriend, something like that.
Oh, you'll grow out of that phase. Don't worry.
But yeah, besides running and work, I don't really get up to much. I don't know. I enjoy being outside generally. So there's a lot of like trail groups out in Flagstaff where you can volunteer and like make some of the trails you run on better. I just got done working at Hart Prairie, which is a nature conservancy property. We were prepping that property for winter. So when I'm not working, I try and do something outside that's going to keep my skills semi-relevant. And sleep. Sleep is probably my favorite hobby.
That's two of us for sure.
Yeah.
It's already it's 7:40 and I'm already yawning. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that. I'm usually asleep by then.
I pick my bedtime based off what I think my girlfriend won't make fun of me for. Like if I go at 9:15, she's gonna make fun of me. If I go at 9:45, it's usually pretty cool. So that's how I pick my bedtime. Yeah, sleep is where it's at. We're up to the point now, the Flagstaff Extreme Big Pine, which is where I heard of, well, who you are, quite honest. Was that an Air Viper race?
Yes, that was an Air Viper race.
All right. So I believe, and I'll have to ask him if he was the one, but I believe Will Walmsley saw it. He sent me the reel or something. It was like, hey, do you know this guy? I was like, actually, no, but seems pretty fast to me. Seems like a kind of guy I would like. So that's how I got to know you, was from that race, the Flagstaff Extreme Big Pine.
Yeah.
The way I looked at it was any race you win in Flagstaff with the amount of runners out there is probably a pretty big deal, I imagine, right?
It depends, I'll be honest. Like and I'm still kind of new to this culture and the people out here. I do feel like a lot of the strong runners in Flagstaff will go hit races in Colorado, or they're off, chasing UTMB dreams or this or that. So it kind of comes and goes. Certainly there's a lot of like steep uphill kind of races that tickle a lot of people's fancy, but the ultra scene, like race-wise, it's not as much as you would think. And I think part of that's just because it's at altitude. I think like if you train at altitude, you want to go do a race not at altitude to see what you're really capable of. But certainly like there is a lot of local competition, and it doesn't have to be ultra. It can be like just regular trail running. Like I've seen all kinds of races on Eldon and in the Nordic Village and North Rim of the Grand Canyon and all this stuff. So, some good competition. People have a lot of options to choose from as well.
Yeah, for sure. There is definitely some good runners out there. We know a few of them, right, Rob?
Oh yeah, we do. Had a few of them on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of good runners out there. So yeah, that's kind of, and it's funny because I think I had like a few more people message me like, is this your cousin? Is our last name is not very common.
No, it is not. You're the only person outside of my family I know, outside of my immediate family I know with the last name Koza. But,
Yeah, yeah, not real common. It does, however, mean goat in Polish. I don't know if you knew that or not.
oh yeah, I milk that all the time. I'm like, hey, you know what? Koza is Polish for goat. So
Yes, it is. And one of our previous guests, Mariana Grudziak, hopefully I said that right. Not as good as she does. She sounds saying it. She's Polish, and she was like, your name means goat, right? And I was like, I do. I've known that for a long time.
oh yeah,
I definitely use that to my advantage as well.
yeah.
Well, maybe 23andMe in the future for the two of you. You never know.
Oh, I don't know.
Could be a relative a few generations back.
Rob, you know how I feel about having all that kind of information out there in the ether. The government getting a hold of my DNA.
It's just for the podcast, Casey. I don't expect you to do it.
From what I know of the last name, wouldn't be shocked if like our grandparents were cousins.
Yeah.
It would not be surprising to me in the least, especially both from Pennsylvania,
Right.
heavy Polish areas. So, but yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Kind of started following along, and I'd send Will and my friend Jeremy Pope, who's out there. Was it last weekend? Yeah, because you were crewing for someone. Jeremy took second at the saddle.
Yeah, saddle.
Yeah, Saddle's 50-mile race. So yeah, I've been sending those two stuff like, he's looking pretty strong. I believe you did go Strava dark, correct?
Kind of. There's like a little time I had like a groin injury. So I am private on Strava now. And that's because like I'm gearing up for the Javelina 100-miler in like 2 weeks. A couple months ago, I was on the course, and I put down my thoughts about the course, and somebody in the comments was like, hey, you got to be careful, like staying how your training's going. Cause I guess I'm like, if you go to the Javelina, like entrance list, because I haven't lost a race, I'm like at the top or near the top of like the rankings for that race, which is kind of funny. Cause like, there's obviously guys in that race who are like way better, killer athletes. And I just have like a weird little stat anomaly. They're like, hey, like, just be careful. Like people are going to be checking your Strava to see how you're training. And that like wigged me out for whatever reason. So I like made my Strava private from that point. And then there's like, sometimes I just don't say stuff. And like, I had a little groin injury a few weeks ago. So I just like wasn't doing much to put on Strava anyway, but now we're back. I'm trying to keep it real. Like I kind of like missed a long run like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, whatever. Like I'll tell the fans how it is, but we'll be back next week kind of thing. I'm not Jim Strava dark, but I'm, not putting it all out there per se.
Yeah, this is exciting times. I mean, this is before you explode on the scene, right? You still have that dark horse that you're walking around in. That it's just interesting. Like you see others, we've met a few of them that they're not in the top 30, top 40, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're there and everyone's talking about them.
Yeah.
So this is an exciting time for you.
Yeah, we'll see, hopefully, knock on wood, we'll see how the race goes. I'm definitely excited for it. It plays into a lot of my strengths. Certainly being a dark horse, I think, is one of those, it lights the fire in your eye a little bit. Like I gotta prove them wrong or whatever.
So you're taking the shot here at Javelina.
Mm-hmm.
What's our strategy look like? Are we allowed to talk about it?
I haven't super thought about strategy. I think a lot of it's going to be weather dependent, but I'll definitely say this much. Like I've had the luxury in all my other races of like, I get to control the race. And that's just like the way I've always run is from the front. Even at Pine Creek, like after the first 4 or 5 miles of the race, I was in front and I didn't let anyone in front of me. I didn't see anybody after that. And every race has kind of been like that because I feel like ultras are more about challenging yourself. So I don't want to be basing my performance off of pacing off of somebody else or seeing what they're doing or, whatever, and being like, oh, I can't do this because they're this person. Javelina will not be that way. It's just like the stakes are too high. It's a long race, it's laps. I haven't thought about it too much, but I know that I get stronger as the distance gets longer. Whatever, first lap, keeping it chill. I don't care if I'm in 800th place. We're going to start working up probably after 2 laps, and like the boost you get from passing people, that's a good thing to have in your back pocket. The boost you get from like knowing that you're coming, but nobody else knows you're coming. I really like running from that place as well. So I haven't thought too much about like pace or position. I'd like to there's a lot of savvy guys in this race, and I'd like to not show them anything until it's time to like really sink my teeth in. I don't want to show them, even if it's a false hand, like these guys will pick up on anything. So I'm just trying to stay out of people's way, do my thing, basically be like brain dead for probably 2.5 laps, wake up 50 miles in. I'm like, all right, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I can take some names, and then just like enjoying the heck out of that pursuit. So I don't have any like specific numbers for you or anything. It's going to get more fun as it goes on.
Yeah, we do have at least one former guest, Caleb Bowen, who's, now that I'm looking at the start list, he's running. Very good runner out of Huntington, West Virginia. Track and field and cross country coach for Marshall. Super good dude. I remember the Blake, I'm going to say his name on Slatengren. I remember him from Western States. He was right with our buddy Simone there all day. So yeah, it's definitely going to be tough, but no, we're excited for you, man, and get to
thank you
to watch you. And I really like that when you went for it, because looking at your ultra sign up, you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to sign up for the Black Canyon Ultra as well, which having run that last year, Rob was out there as well. Rob and I ran the 60K, which is now 50K, which is a much better idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough course. That is,
yeah.
I'm thinking about going back out there. Will wants to go run it, so we might go back out there. Might see you out there for that. But yeah, that's another one. You're taking a shot at 2 premier ultras in America, I think, and I mean that by like ones that you can actually get into.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I remember registering for Black Canyon back in like April, and it's not a guarantee that I'll do it. I want to see like how I'm feeling after Javelina, if there's something left in the tank, if there's something left unsaid. But it's also possible I'll scratch out of that and like go do some just races for pure enjoyment. Southern Arizona, the AZT puts on like a couple 50 milers, which would be cool. I'm not like super guaranteed locked in for Black Canyon, but obviously I had to register super early just to give myself that opportunity. I'm going to talk with my coach. We're going to see, but no promises, but I think 100K is probably my distance. I'm not like super mature in the ultra field, so I don't have like the latent strength to just like continuously blast 100 milers, but 100K feels like I could do some damage in 100K. Nothing's off the table. Everything's on the table at this point.
Well, if you do end up running it, this is a fun race, man. It's a cool course, starting up pretty high altitude, very cold in the morning, and then just running downhill for not quite the whole race, but probably half of it to 40% of it. I mean, it's just a really, really fun, beautiful, beautiful course.
Yeah. And I've passed it, on my way down to look at the Javelina course, because it's just off, at least Black Canyon City's just off of the 17. So you can hop on that scenic trail real easy. And a lot of my friends are doing it. So like, I'll be there in some capacity for sure, whether it's like volunteering or crewing people. Not positive I'll race it, but it's just, I'm trying to just focus on Javelina and see where the competitive spirit takes me.
Yeah, I hopefully I'll see you out there. I know I definitely can't go out to Javelina. I will not be there. So I think I'll be in Florida, maybe. I'll be somewhere, not there.
Anywhere but there is probably good. It's probably still going to be hot, and there's going to be 1,000 people squeezed into this one park. So
Yeah, but I will be rooting for you. Um, I'm a little disappointed it's $48 to park, but that's not my business. So
How much was it? $48 to park?
yeah.
the VIP parking at like the start finish line is $48. And when I saw that, I'll be honest, I was like just in a grumpy mood, and that just like made me super grumpy. I was like, man, I'm so tired of spending money on this sport, and $48 to park is crazy. Luckily, my mom bought the pass because she's like coming out to crew me. So I'm like, all right, I'm catching a ride with my mom. She's gonna drive me to the start line. It's chill.
Yes. Perfect. That's good. Yeah, at least mom picked it up. That's nice of her.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, mom.
Yeah, moms are always there for you. So
Hmm.
so that's good. And yeah, we're gonna be rooting for you at Javelina. I
Thank you.
think you might be one of the only PA people out there. Let me look at the
That's cool. At some point, I'm gonna have to change my location of Flagstaff, but I live in my car, so it's like I don't have an address to put, So it's like we'll just keep repping Pennsylvania for now. Let them think I train in Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's a good throw off. Now, past Black Canyon, I guess you've talked about it a little bit, like, hey, give it a shot for 1 or 2 years.
Hmm.
See what happens. Do you have anything other plans within the next year?
Kinda. Definitely the thing that like hypes me up the most is like I want to attempt, and I know Javelina is like a pretty fast course for 100 miler, but there are a few courses that are a little faster, a little flatter, weather's probably a little nicer towards the end of next year. I want to say I'm forgetting the name. I think it's like Brazos Bend, which is in Texas. It's still like 5 loops, but it's like a super flat course. And it has like I don't think it's a golden ticket. It might be, but it has like a cash prize, which is kind of cool, offset some of the training costs. But generally speaking, I'll say like a really fast 100 miler. This would be kind of like a comical. This is kind of like a comical goal that I keep like tucked in my back pocket. But at some point, I'd like to run the equivalent of like 4 Boston Marathon qualifiers in a 100 miler. And I know that's not 4 marathons. It's like 5.2 miles short. But to like be on pace for whatever that would be, because I think I'm capable of that. But if they keep, cutting down the qualifying times, I'm going to run out of time. And then it's like, shoot, I'm going to have to do 100 miles in 8 hours and 40 minutes, for my age group. Hopefully another 100 miler is like kind of the far off big plan for next year. I kind of want to just like wreck a bunch of 50 milers, like especially in Flagstaff. So like Sky Peaks was like a couple weeks ago. Saddles 50 in Prescott, like see if I can get that kind of like grindy, like I don't want to say old man strength, but like that kind of thing where like I can hit races off of a quicker recovery period, hit some 50 milers, like get that strength down really good as like preparation for 100 miler. I don't know. I procrastinate a lot. So like registering for races this far in advance is super new to me. And it's like I might miss the opportunity for some big races because it's not even on my radar until 2 weeks before it happens. And then I'm like, oh, darn, I should have registered 2 years ago. I need to take out, like I don't know, some kind of like time loan, go back in time and be like, yes, I would like to register for this race. So long story short, 100 miler, fast, 50 milers for fun.
One of the fastest 100 milers is the one I'm running this weekend. Won't be fast for me. Well, hopefully I get finished. But the Canal Corridor is I think 2 years ago was definitely, I think it had the top 2 fastest 100 mile times. Caleb Bowen and another gentleman who specializes in track races came out and did it. So he went from track to that. That's pretty. There's one hill on the course.
Yeah, and Pine Creek is similar to that. I just like the humidity, like after being in the humidity for 21 years of my life, I'm very over it. and I like this dry heat out here. And so that's where I'm trying to, obviously not that Texas is going to be much better, but I'm trying to look at like races in November because, you know, that with the way that things keep heating up or whatever, like November in the South seems to be like a pretty tame time where it's not too cold. It hasn't snowed necessarily, but also like the humidity's cooling down. The Gulf of Mexico is not like popping off as much. It's becoming weather dependent for me because I'm kind of a sissy in the heat. And, you know, I've been doing like the sauna training and all that junk, but like I would rather just like, I just want perfect conditions to run fast. I know there's like something to be said for like working through the heat or working through the cold or whatever. It's like, that's not the kind of thing that I hold in high value right now. It's like, give me perfect conditions, you know, like give me Kipchoge sub 2 hour attempt conditions, you know, controlled as much as possible, like get my fuel good, all that stuff, just how fast can I run on a flat course kind of thing. So we're going to do some more research, but I did see Canal on there. Pine Creek's kind of on there, but I don't know.
Problem here is it can be a little too cold this time of October. Like 45 degrees and rain is not my ideal anything.
No.
No, you get cold and humidity. It's not a good combo.
It's bad combo. But if the weather's good, it's always good to have goals, right, Rob?
Oh, 100%. And you're a young guy, Ethan. I mean, you have another 40, 50 years of running. So take your time. Don't worry about missing out. And I have to ask you before we wrap up, you're living out of your car. What kind of car do you drive?
I drive a 2009 Subaru Forester, which is like a compact SUV. Luckily, I'm only 5'9", so I can fit in there. But basically, me and my girlfriend build out like a kind of like a camping system in it. So there's like a sliding drawer system. I put like a mattress pad on top of it. I can sleep soundly. You know, I got a sunroof, whatever, ventilation. It's definitely not a long-term plan, but I really like not paying rent. There's a lot of forest land out here, so it's easy to just like go park somewhere with like beautiful dark skies where you're not going to be bothered. You're not breaking any laws. Very peaceful. But winter will be a little harsh.
You jealous, Rob?
Very, very. Ethan, if I was your age, that's exactly what I would be doing.
Right? Living the life out there, Flagstaff, running.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I talked with you a little bit about it, but yeah, the car living, I enjoy my trips where I stay in my car and camp out in my car. Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. I wish I would have done that in my 20s.
Same.
Hey, you're never too old. You're never too old to start, honestly.
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't know that I'm going to go fight fires. I think I'm past my day in that one there. Out in the wilderness fighting fires.
We'll see. You know, I miss it. As much as I like this running thing, I'm kind of like, man, I miss that. It's, you know, the grass is always greener or whatever, but I'm committed to this at least for a year or 2 years. You know, we'll see how. A year from April, basically, when I came out here. So I got at least some time left, if not some more time left.
Sweet. Well, we're looking forward to watching you. I know I'll be rooting for you at Javelina. Waiting for you to make your move for sure. And wish you all the best of luck in everything you do. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you on here. Hopefully after a good Javelina race, maybe.
Oh, man, that would be awesome. After a good Javelina race and a good Canal Corridor race, we'll both have some war stories to report.
Hell yeah. Finishing will be a good story for me. So
you got to smoke a cigar at the finish line. That makes it's like the coolest picture, you know, 100 miles, quads are like shredded. You just got a big old fat cigar, like, I don't know, college football championships or whatever. Joe Burrow.
The Joe Burrow cigar picture. Yeah, I might have to settle for a beer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get the carbs back into me. So yeah, but we certainly appreciate your time, Ethan, and we're glad you could join us. We're glad we got the Wi-Fi situation figured out there.
Yeah.
I
guess the one downside, Flagstaff, is the library doesn't know how to do Wi-Fi, but it was a super big honor for you to invite me on, and I'm super grateful that you guys are willing to give me a little bit of time to talk about my boring little whatever I do.
No, dude, it's awesome. You're gonna go out and crush it. Kozas ain't soft. We're goats, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, but thanks again, man. We sincerely appreciate it. And where can our listeners? Well, I guess you don't post much on Instagram. That was the only thing I could find. But you are on Strava, which is private, so
Yeah.
that wouldn't be a good spot. But you are on Instagram.
Yeah.
You stole my name, which is cowboy.koza. Cowboy spelled with a K, in case anyone wants to give you a follow.
But I'll probably open my Strava up like after the race once I don't feel like anyone's keeping my training. I'll probably open it up. Hopefully things go well. People can see how the build went. I don't want to be like reclusive, like I don't want to just like keep my stuff to myself, but obviously I understand there's a strategic component. So I hope people will like see it and be like, oh, he's just like a normal runner. Like if he can do it, I can do it kind of thing. So I'll definitely open up the Strava. I'm not just going to keep it secret kind of thing. I didn't do anything crazy. So
Yeah, you just go out and run every day. I mean, that
Yeah,
seems to be a pretty good strategy for most people, right, Rob?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything out there that's too big of a secret when it comes to running. There's different plans of attack, but it's kind of using the same ingredients.
Yeah, thanks again, man. We certainly appreciate it. And we look forward to watching Javelina. Hopefully, Will and myself will be out at Black Canyon. If he registers, that'll probably force me to register, but he probably wants to wait and see how Columbus Marathon goes. So hopefully we see you out there.
Yeah, well, thank you guys again. Casey, Rob. Casey, good luck in the race. Rob,
Thanks,
thanks
dude.
for having me on.
Yeah.
man.
And, yeah.
Well, one last question. And so what color is the Subaru?
It is like light blue. I don't have like a good color vocabulary, but light blue, kind of shiny, PA plates. Can't miss it.
So I guess if any of our listeners see a Subaru that's light blue with PA plates, maybe give it a knock and wish this young man good luck.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us Polish are colorblind, Rob, so it might not be blue.
True.
And on that note,
Peace out for Hobby Jogger. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Hobby Jogger. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support keeps us moving forward. Until next time, keep those feet moving and enjoy the miles.